Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm back after my brief one-week break to bring you all the latest in this week's ThunderCats episode review right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's ThunderCats episode review. Now, this is Season 1, Episode 21, entitled Birth of the Blades, and this week's episode picks up directly after last week's episode, in which the ThunderCats recovered the Sword of Plun-Darr, which is Mumm-Ra's chief principal weapon. They recovered it at a mine where they traveled in order to free other cats who were being forced to work there as slaves. And so at the end of last week's episode, Lion-O and the rest of the team found themselves confronted by Mumm-Ra's forces. That's where we pick up in this week's episode. And so what the ThunderCats decide to do, Tigra, Chitara, and Panthro decide to retreat back to the tank, while Lion-O and Mumm-Ra, they decide to go to try and lose Mumm-Ra and his forces within the mines. Their idea was if they can force Mumm-Ra and his forces to follow them through the mines, they'd be able to lose them. They'd be able to keep the Sword of Plun-Darr, and because Mumm-Ra knows the mines, they'd be able to retreat safely back to the Thunder Tank with the sword intact and get the hell up out of there. However, that plan proved troublesome, as throughout the episode, Lion-O and Mumm-Ra came in contact with Atticus and Kanar, and then of course there was a big showdown between them and Mumm-Ra at the end, resulting in Mumm-Ra getting back the Sword of Plun-Darr, and with Lion-O and Mumm-Ra barely being able to escape. However, we did learn that Mumm-Ra has kind of gotten over her animosity towards Lion-O and has kind of gotten more within his favor. But another thing throughout the episode was that we got flashbacks on exactly how the Sword of Plun-Darr was made and how the Sword of Omens was made. And so we kind of went back to the flashbacks that we saw in the Legacy episode. And so to just pretty much give you all my thoughts on the episode, I thought it was a great episode. Definitely one of the best episodes of the season. I love the flashbacks, of course, because you all know that I love whenever they do the flashbacks with Mumm-Ra, with Leo, and with, you know, how pretty much how all of this, you know, started. I love that. I love that exposition. And so I really did enjoy the flashbacks. As far as the events of the actual episode, it wasn't bad. I thought the plan was kind of foolhardy, especially since Mumm-Ra knew where to find them in the mines at all times. It's not like, I think what happened was that Lion-O and Mumm-Ra were thinking of the mines as a maze, and they were like, well, we know the way through the maze, but Mumm-Ra doesn't. But that doesn't work when he can follow the sword which you're carrying. You see what I'm saying? It's like Mumm-Ra knew where they were the entire time they were in the mine. So that plan didn't really work. They get an A for effort, but the plan didn't really work. Also, I did like the fact that Lion-O lost in the final fight. Because too often in this series, we've seen Lion-O be able to defeat Mumm-Ra, and it doesn't make any sense. Especially after the Trials of Lion-O episodes, my thoughts was this: if Lion-O can beat back Mumm-Ra so easily, hell, he single-handedly infiltrated Mumm-Ra's fortress and freed the rest of the team, and they were able to escape unharmed. So if you can pull off something like that, it doesn't make Mumm-Ra out to be that much of a formidable opponent. Ooh, damn, excuse me, talking too fast. But it doesn't make Mumm-Ra out to be that much of a formidable opponent. However, like I said, I miss when Lion-O used to lose, because every battle that Lion-O lost that he had to retreat from, that was reassuring the sense of danger that they were trying to build up in the show. We have to make Mumm-Ra a force to be reckoned with. If Lion-O can just swing out the Swords of Omens or the Spirit Stone and whoop his ass every time, then what's the point? So I'm glad that Lion-O lost this fight. Also, if you go back and you look at the fight, because I was paying close attention to it, even when Lion-O had the Sword of Omens and using the Spirit Stone, all he could manage to do was disarm Mumm-Ra. But he couldn't take the sword back, and he couldn't physically beat Mumm-Ra. All he could manage to do was disarm him. And think about it, that makes the most sense. It's like, there's no way in hell he's going to be able to beat Mumm-Ra like this. So the best thing you could do is disarm him for the time being, get Plun-Darr, and get the fuck up out of there. Which was exactly what they did. Now, I will address my one issue with this episode that I don't think is adding up with what we've seen previously in the series. Okay, you remember in the Legacy episode how Mumm-Ra had within his possession all 4 of the Stones of Power, right? And 3 of them were in his gauntlet, and the War Stone was supposed to go into the Sword of Plun-Darr, right? However, Leo managed to get that stone and he put it in the Sword of Omens, and of course, that's how we got the Sword of Omens. Now here's my question. How is it possible that Mumm-Ra and the Sword of Plun-Darr are so powerful where they could fight against Lion-O, who has not only the Sword of Omens, which we were told the Sword of Omens was the end-all be-all weapon to use against Mumm-Ra, right? But that's a lie, because the Sword of Omens was forged from scrap metal from the Sword of Plun-Darr. So if anything, the Sword of Plun-Darr should automatically be a more powerful weapon, because when you look at the star, when you look at the metal in which the Sword of Plun-Darr was forged, that has more of that metal than the Sword of Omens does. You remember, the Sword of Omens was made from the scrap. You see what I'm saying? That's the principal sword. I forget what the Japanese term for it. When a blacksmith makes katanas, there's a principal blade. The Sword of Plun-Darr is the principal blade, right? Okay, so if the Sword of Plun-Darr is the principal blade, then that would innately make it more powerful than the Sword of Omens, right? However, the Sword of Omens has the War Stone. The Sword of Plun-Darr doesn't have a stone. And then Lion-O has the Spirit Stone. So Lion-O, with the Sword of Omens and 2 stones, does not equal the Sword of Plun-Darr and no stones for Mumm-Ra? There's something about those. There's something about that that's not making sense. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's not adding up. It's not adding up. But hey, yeah, it's not adding up. Even though the Sword of Plun-Darr is a more powerful sword, Lion-O should have still had the advantage because he has 2 stones of power, where Mumm-Ra has none. Doesn't add up. That was my only complaint about the episode. But now I'm actually looking forward to see where the story's going. I hope Plun-Darr. I hope that she does remain a main cast member. I really like her. I think that character adds a different dynamic to the team, more so than just adding another girl. I think her personality in comparison with Cheetara and her personality, I think it adds a different dynamic to the team. Plun-Darr, for all intent and purpose, is pretty much like a female Panthro in personality. You see what I'm saying? So I like having her on the team. I hope she sticks around. And I'm interested to see what will happen now that Mumm-Ra is a big player again. But I have to tell you all this. The whole Wild Goose Chase thing is starting to get old, and I have to question the level of competence with Mumm-Ra and his forces. You're telling me that Mumm-Ra didn't know that the sword of Plun-Darr was in that mine? Seriously? He can call out to the sword, but not enough to where the sword can let him know that it was in the mine in the first place. And why does it seem like Mumm-Ra is always a step behind the ThunderCats, despite the fact that he has more people under his command and he's more technologically savvy? Not to mention, he's the only one who's entwined with the ancient spirits of evil. I got to question the level of incompetence that's going on in Mumm-Ra and his forces, because they should not be playing this wild goose chase with the ThunderCats. They really shouldn't. Especially since it doesn't seem like the Book of Omens is pointing the ThunderCats to these other stones. They're fucking having such a hard time finding them just like he is. So what the fuck is going on? What's going on? Not to mention, take in consideration this. We only have 5 more episodes in this season, and last time I checked, ThunderCats was not renewed for a second season. There's a good chance that this series is gonna be it after the first season, because when Cartoon Network put out their press release for the upcoming year, ThunderCats was not on that press release at all. So what's going on here? And we have 2 more stones that need to be located. Is this whole story about to get wrapped up in 5 episodes? Are we just going to be asked out because it wasn't able to continue? I don't know. But all in all, it was a good episode. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend checking it out. It was pretty good. Like I said, one of the better episodes of the season. And that's going to do it for me. Keep an eye out for my Legend of Korra review coming out later tonight. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do both. I'm going to do a 2-for-1, just like I did last year with my Game of Thrones reviews. Episodes 6 and 7 will be in one review tomorrow night, so feel free to check those out. But with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, 08W Commander-in-Chief, signing off. Until next time, peace.